I think we gotta talk about dungeon masters in the D&D community differently. When we say X is a great dungeon master, that doesn't help us at all know what they're actually like. Worse still, in my opinion, there are great dungeon masters whose games I would not want to play in. Not every DM fits every player, everyone brings something new to the table, but people have varying tastes and interests. Ironically, although I am called Enter the Dungeon, if I played in a campaign that was only dungeon crawling all the time, I would be miserable. I need my characters, I need my roleplay to be happy. That doesn't mean though that a DM who runs those games is a bad DM. I want to be clear. I personally don't like that style of game, but I can recognize other DMs who do it incredibly well. But it is a problem that carries over when players are trying to find gaming groups. It's really hard to identify which DMs you would actually mesh well with. If you love running sandbox games, but your players are more in favor of this guided adventure, well, there could be a problem. Players might be looking for direction when you have no intent of giving it. You're wanting to run a sandbox, but they're waiting for the next NPC to give them a quest. So how can we more accurately describe dungeon masters so players can find the DMs that they mesh with the best? Well, check out this chart I created. I'm calling it the Game Master Axis, and it's supposed to represent 4 general types of game masters that run games, so you can more accurately learn about those game masters. On the X-axis, we have whether you're a more narratively focused game master or a sandbox focused game master. A sandbox being, of course, an open world game with no to very little game master direction. A narrative game being a more structured game with a focused story. Basically, who's ever running your game is taking a more active role in the storytelling. The Y-axis shows us whether you focus more on role-playing or tactical elements within your games. Now let me be clear, there are a lot of other metrics that you could take into account, but this is a good shorthand for who a particular DM is. If you tell me that you're a narrative tactical DM, I can get a lot more information from those 2 words than you just saying, oh yeah, they're a great DM. You're probably leading a party from place to place via the campaign plot. There's a heavier focus on tactical combat, and I'm not going to expect a sandbox with tons of NPCs. You're a narrative tactical DM, a stronger presence with the story, and more tactically focused. I just kind of want to go around the horn and give you examples of which famous DMs I think fit into which slots. For the sandbox roleplay slot, I think Matt Mercer is the prime candidate here. At least for the first 3 campaigns of Critical Role, from what I've seen, Matt Mercer leans heavily on more sandbox elements. He opens up a huge world to his players and lets them guide the story. While narrative events do happen from time to time, for the most part on a session-to-session basis, Matt is a sandbox DM who focuses heavily on roleplay. Now if we shift over to the narrative roleplay side of things, I think we're going to find famous DMs like Lee Mulligan and Abria Iyengar. Well, don't get me wrong, I believe that both of them are supremely capable to run sandbox games, it's just not their preferred style. Brennan and Abria, when they DM, I've seen take a more active role in guiding the story forward. Brennan has said it himself that seasons of Dimension 20 are more structured. He has a certain amount of time to get a season done, and therefore the narrative has to keep moving along. So he takes more of a role in pushing that story forward. But this also leads to much shorter campaigns that are more focused. I think this is the difference between a Critical Role campaign and a Dimension 20 season. Critical Role campaigns are over 100 episodes, where Dimension 20 caps out between 20 and 25 episodes. Moving down though, I want to take a look at Narrative Tactical. These are campaigns where the DM takes more of a role in the story while also focusing more on the tactical side of games. I think 2 DMs that fit this style are Matt Colville and Brian Murphy, Murph from Dimension 20. Matt Colville, I think, is the prototypical narrative tactical GM. In the Chain of Acheron campaign, he embodies this perfectly as he takes a strong narrative hand in the story, while also focusing more on the tactical aspects of D&D. Even during role-playing moments, it feels more like a chess match. And for Murph, I haven't watched a ton of NADPOD, but I get very much the same vibe from him as a DM. He brings a lot of the tactical elements, while I think his players bring a ton of the role-playing elements to his campaigns. But again, I haven't watched a ton of NADPOD, so I could be wrong here. And then for the Sandbox Tactical, I had a harder time coming up with an actual DM that perfectly encapsulates this quadrant. So I leave it up to you guys in the comments, who do you think is the prototypical Sandbox Tactical Game Master? Because I really do want to know. And I think it's time that we really start acknowledging the different types of Game Masters. We're doing Game Masters a disservice by just labeling them as great, when great for me and great for you might look completely differently. I know for me, I consider myself a more narrative roleplay style DM, so I'm right there. But if you're into a sandbox role-playing type of game, then there might be things that we disagree on. But understanding those differences in taste and keeping them in mind, I think can only strengthen our discussion about Game Masters. And if you want to learn about one of the most important things a Game Master can do, check out this video right here. And thank you for entering the dungeon.